Whoa, folks, welcome to the first movie punditry of the new year and new decade. Uh,
It is not the new decade.
I know.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Red 5 standing by.
I am Iron Man.
I am Loki of Asgard, and I am burdened with glorious purpose.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman. I am Groot.
Hello there.
Yes, I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
If you step out that door, you are an Avenger.
That's what we call ourselves. Sort of like a team. Earth's mightiest heroes type thing.
Superhero landing. She gonna do a superhero landing. Wait for it!
I could do this all day.
But yeah, we're gonna talk about the Golden Globes. We're gonna talk about BAFTA and some Star Wars fallout. Where do you want to start first?
Well, I guess the Golden Globes already happened, so we should probably talk about them.
Okay. So in terms of prestige, where do these things rank?
They rank just above you and I doing a list.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the Golden Globes are put together by a group called the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, and it's a group of about 80 journalists from non-American outlets. And it's really their way to get into a room with all these celebrities, basically. And because of who's doing the voting, it's not industry people. It's not the same voters as you'll see in like the SAG Awards or the WGA Awards or the Oscars. They tend to have some pretty wildly different picks.
Mm-hmm.
And also the fact that they split the movie categories up into drama and musical or comedy. And that's a really gray area because studios will decide which category they're kind of campaigning for. And sometimes you find really weird films like The Martian being a comedy. So it's kind of weird. But the cool thing about it is they throw this big party and they have a dinner in the room before the award show starts. And the booze is flowing pretty freely. So everybody's fairly liquored up by the time the show starts, which makes for some interesting speeches.
Yeah, because Elton John stumbled a few times walking up to get that award. You could definitely
Renee
tell people.
Zellweger looked like she was barely holding herself together going up there. So
yeah, there were definitely a few pints in. Anything surprise you at that show?
I don't necessarily know about surprises. I think maybe, and again, it's kind of rough because, which do you really take seriously? Do you take the drama category seriously or the comedy category? It's tough to see what is really going to translate over into like an Academy Award or a BAFTA Award or an Emmy. But I think like Aquafina winning for the Farewell was kind of surprising.
Not a fan of her.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie, but just based on like her competition, because Booksmart was getting a lot of publicity early on in the year. You got Cate Blanchett in that category, and you never really vote against her. Emma Thompson, again, she's another powerhouse in that category. So, that was kind of a tough pick. Joaquin Phoenix, I think that was pretty much a shoo-in.
Yeah.
Even though I liked, I really liked Christian Bale in Ford versus Ferrari. I really liked Jonathan Pryce in The Two Popes. I thought he was amazing.
Yeah, you've talked about that a lot.
Adam Driver's getting a lot of buzz for his work in Marriage Story, but I think based on everything the Joker did, its performance, all the critical reviews, I'm not really surprised at all that he won for that. So, And, you know, Renee Zellweger, I think, is probably not that big of a surprise as well, winning for Judy. You know, that supposedly was a really fantastic performance. So, you know, I don't know. There was a ton of real surprises in there. I think probably the big surprise is 1917 winning for Best Drama. I think a lot of people thought Joker was really going to be a shoo-in for that. And so that was a big surprise and gives a lot of push to that film going forward.
The only thing that stood out to me was, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name right, Edgerton winning.
Taron Egerton, winning for Rocketman.
Not saying it was a bad movie, and then a lot of times that's the reflection of his performance overall. I'm pretty sure he did a good job. But some of those guys he was up against, I'm like, not so sure he did a better job than they did. But
well, I mean, you know, the thing is, one, you got to remember what I said. You know, this is the Hollywood Foreign Press. These guys love Elton John, and so you know, Rocketman kind of had, you know, they kind of had an edge over, you know, Leo and Eddie Murphy. You know, and as much as I thought Daniel Craig was fantastic in Knives Out, you know, I don't necessarily know that it's the same level of those performances as some of the other guys. So, and this is where the split comes in place, you know, translating into the Oscars now, where you're only going to have 5 people competing in the category is going to make a bit of a difference in that, you know, it splits this field, basically cuts this field in half. Although Taron Egerton did get a BAFTA nomination, so he's certainly he's certainly a contender for an Oscar nomination.
How good of an actor is he? Because you would know this better than I would.
I think he's pretty good, actually. I like Taron Egerton. You know, he has shown that he can do a couple of different things. I mean, certainly his character in the Kingsman films, and then you look at like what he did in Eddie the Eagle, and now you look at what he's done in Rocketman. He's certainly shown a lot of range for a young actor, and I think he's a pretty solid actor.
Okay. You surprised that Disney didn't got beat out by that? Was it Missing Link?
I think everybody was surprised. I think when Missing Link got announced, basically 1,000 people in that room turned around and went like, "Missing Link? What is this?" You know. So, yeah, I think everybody was kind of surprised at that one.
Okay. Now I kind of want to move on to the Star Wars stuff because I finally read what Chris Terrio said, and I'm not trying to gloss over the Golden Globes, but just some of the stuff this guy's saying, it's really like, what in the hell? All right. So I like that the interview brought up like, hey guy, you are attached to this film, and you've also got Justice League and BVS on your plate. What's wrong with this dude? Like, are him and JJ stupid, or do they think we're stupid? Because he's trying to say that, oh, no, we weren't taking jabs at The Last Jedi. When you were clearly spent this whole film taking jabs at The Last Jedi. Or am I reading it wrong?
Here's the thing is I don't necessarily know that Chris is not genuine when he says some of the things that he says. But I think that he was drinking whatever, you know, Kool-Aid JJ was mixing, and you know, certainly JJ and Kathy Kennedy and the other producers at Lucasfilm were reacting to the fallout from The Last Jedi and the loud vocal minority of people who took a lot of issue with the film, and kind of swinging it back the other way. And I think JJ also probably taking back some of his narrative, where things veered away. And, so there was like one particular question where, and we're talking about the GQ interview that just came out. I think it just came out today on Wednesday, or today, Tuesday. Yeah, on the 8th, Wednesday. So, and then he was asked a question about, like, why were you like coming back into this whole idea of raised parenthood, and parentage when it was resolved in the last movie? And he was like, well, I don't think it was really resolved in the last movie. You got to remember that last movie took place like 2 days after The Force Awakens. And so there was still, and I guess he makes a good point. They kind of set up this idea that Rey had been spent her whole life looking for who she was and who her parents was. And the whole thing was resolved like pretty quickly. I understand his point, but
hey, you know what? Take it up with Kathleen Kennedy. They didn't give these people beats to say this is what you got to stick to. You want to go freewheeling with your $1 billion franchise? That's on her. Like
and that's the big point. The big point is that this was a mess from ground A when nobody sat down at the beginning of this thing and said, okay, look, we're closing out this 40-year legacy. We're closing out this 9 movie, So George Lucas gives them his story arc for the last 3 movies, and they say, thank you very much. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out.
Go spend the money we gave you.
We're going to, enjoy your $4 billion, and we're going to take our franchise and do what we want with it. And that's fine. It's their money. It's their franchise. They bought it. They can do what they want with it. But the fact that they didn't sit down at the beginning of this thing, and I'm not saying go through beat by beat by beat, but they didn't sit down and plan out the end point.
Exactly.
That's a problem for me. That how do you take this responsibility that not seriously? This is not a new franchise. This isn't in pop culture, in film. This is an important thing you're doing.
And let's be honest. Until this whole Marvel monstrosity got rolling, this was the franchise.
Absolutely. And for them to take it so cavalierly, and for JJ just to say, all right, well, I did my part and now off you go. And then it doesn't go the way they want it to go. Like, well, you guys didn't map this thing out to start with. You guys didn't sit there and say, this is the end point. This is where we're going. How do you not know who Rey's parents are?
That should have been one of the first things that was on the board. It's for me. There's a part where I'm like, this is negligence. This is that you should have known, like, from the get go. What are we doing with Harrison? What are we doing with Mark Hamill? You didn't know that was going to happen with Carrie Fisher. But it's like, where are these characters going to be at when this thing is done?
And honestly, I think that part was mapped out. From what I understand, this was always going to be a case where the first film was going to focus on Han, the second film was going to focus on Luke, and the third film was going to focus on Leia. And Unfortunately, we lost Carrie Fisher, after the second film was completed, and we didn't really get to that point.
Yeah,
and they had to punt a little bit there, and that's fine. I understand all that. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is Rey. I'm talking about, this idea, from jump, this is your main character, regardless of what they told us, because that's just JJ's mystery box.
Yeah.
All the marketing, all the thing told us that Finn was going to be the main character. And you pull the switch, and that's fine. That's what you do. I got no problem with that.
I have a huge problem with that.
I know you have a huge problem with it, but I don't have a problem with that per se. But once you decide in your planning stages that Rey is going to be your main character, and she's going to be the one who carries this narrative through. You need to decide who she is, and you need to at least sketch out what her arc is going to be, so that the filmmakers who come after you have this kind of, they're all pointing in the same direction.
Yeah.
Rian Johnson takes this thing that he has, and he says, you know what I want to do? I want to go beyond this story, and I want to have a conversation about Star Wars and what it is, because that's what his film was.
Yep.
And I personally love it.
I did too.
But now JJ's trying to pull it back into the story. And if they had connected the dots and said all along, oh, you know what? Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter. I can't even believe it.
Which is still absurd.
Absurd,
it's just absurd.
But you know what? If that's where you want to go, then that's where you want to go, and that's fine. Then tell your middle filmmaker that that's where you're going.
Yeah.
So that he can support the whole vision.
It just comes off like they just showed up and said, "Here, you get to make a Star Wars movie. Oh, you're doing the second one? You get to make a Star Wars movie. And JJ, you can do the last one when, you know, this Colin thing doesn't work out." And nobody sat down and had a conversation with each other. Or there wasn't an email that said, "Hey, maybe if you guys can just stick to these points, it'd be really helpful." And then it kind of leads me to believe, like, how much autonomy, like, do they have over there at the Star Wars group separate from Disney? Like, is there somebody coming around, like, not Bob Iger, but somebody coming around saying, "Hey, how's things going over there? You guys on track? Everything going well?" Or they just checking their receipts?
Well, you know, they need to deliver the films. And I think that Disney as a business is going to have certainly a bit of say into certain aspects of the whole thing. And I think they had a lot to say about, you know, this film and where it was going to go. But I think for the most part, they kind of keep hands off on it.
Mm-hmm.
And let Lucasfilm do what Lucasfilm does. You know, just like they let Marvel do what Marvel does. Their main concern is that they hit production targets. Not so much they don't care so much about story and the creative stuff. But part of the problem with this was, you know, when Force Awakens was first conceived, there was a writer on it by the name of Michael Arndt, and Michael Arndt is a good writer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he wrote Toy Story 3 and Little Miss Sunshine and a whole bunch of other films. But he is, by his own admission, Michael Arndt is a very slow writer.
Yeah.
And his process cannot be rushed. And he was working on this draft of the story, and like he basically at one point asked them for an 18-month extension.
Wow.
And they were like, no, we have a production date. You know, we have a date already. December of 2015, this movie's coming out in theaters. So you can't have your 18 months. And that's when the Kasdans were brought in to take over the script. So those kind of things affect the storytelling.
It just sounds like this thing was doomed from the get-go.
I think doomed is a strong word, but I think it was poorly executed. I think that their baffling lack of broad strokes in this is just kind of mind-blowing, especially when you're talking about, you're in 2013 now. You see what is happening over on the Marvel side of the house.
Yeah.
And the fact that they clearly have a narrative, and they clearly have, even though they're allowing filmmakers to do what they do and tell the stories that they're telling, there are clearly threads that have been plotted out, and it's working really well. To not have any kind of overarching story is just bizarre to me. And granted, and George didn't have that in the first two films either. He was making that whole thing up as he went along. And it feels it because you have, you know, Leia kissing Luke, and you have Leia talking about her mother that she remembers, I mean, there's you have
Well,
Obi-Wan talking about his brother Owen. You have all this stuff going on that in the larger story doesn't make any sense. When you look at the prequels, for all their flaws, there is clearly a cohesive narrative in those films.
yes, there is.
And they were clearly the story arcs are well thought out and well done in those three films. And those three films feel like one piece.
Yes, they do. This felt like an omelet that wasn't supposed to be put together. Like, I'm sitting back and I'm thinking about, like, they purchased this thing in 2012, right?
This feels like an egg sandwich. You have two pieces of bread with an egg in the middle.
Is it safe to say that this was, I don't want to say a failure. What's the word? A letdown?
Well, I think there's certainly a certain amount of backpedaling that's going on, and kind of the read is kind of for them to be dragging Chris Terrio out and doing all these interviews. There's certainly damage control going on,
and it's great because you know what? They didn't want to be where they were with The Last Jedi, and you're in the exact same spot. Probably,
I think they're almost in a worse spot.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're probably in a worse spot. You did all this fan service, all this retcon and backpedaling to be in a worse position than you were when you know what you should have just did? Just made the film that you thought you should have made and stopped trying to please people.
Yeah. No, and to be fair, I don't think by anybody's measurement this film could be considered a failure. I mean, this film was a weekend away from hitting $1 billion. So, it's doing fine. But I think they were, unprepared for the level of pushback and the level of vitriol that this film has created.
I honestly, I go back to what I said when I walked out, worse than BVS.
That's a harsh criticism.
I went back and rewatched.
How many times have you seen it?
This film?
Yeah,
twice. Well, once in theater and once by other means.
So I've also seen it twice, and it was better on the second viewing. It's growing on me. I need to see it again, but I think that problems aside, I think this film has really great moments in it. And as time goes by, the question for me is going to be, do those great moments overshadow the narrative problems that the film has? Because Force Awakens has a lot of problems too. And I don't know that I can say that, like, in a year or so, am I going to say that I like The Force Awakens better than this film? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I hate the ending. I mean, not the very ending, but I hate the whole Palpatine thing. But there's a lot of good stuff in this film too.
I'm going to need an Ultimate Edition for me to like this film, because I have issues with the lightsaber battles. I have issues with a lot of stuff. Like I like the planets. I like visually. It's a great film, but I just remember sitting there the same way I sat there during Batman vs Superman, trying to piece this film together and re-edit the film in my mind, and I'm like, I shouldn't have to do that. And I watched that regular edition of Batman vs Superman the other day at work, and I'm just like, good Lord, this is bad. This stuff going on here doesn't make sense. But at least I know that it's a bad cut. Is that the case with this film? Was there another version out there? Are we getting a JJ cut?
I don't know. I mean, I think I said in my initial reaction to this film when we first did the show right after it, this film could have used another month in the editing room. It's really terribly edited and terribly paced, but so maybe there's a better version of this film somewhere. Will we ever see it? I don't know. Will there be a director's cut? Maybe. it's a tough thing because how do you know, I think about all the hatred and anger there is over the special editions and the fact that, you know, they came along and they changed the film.
Yeah.
They changed those 3 films and people hated that, you know, so now do you go back and change this film? Because there are people who love this film. And, you know, so do you change it? And here's the other side of that is our criticism of the film is one of the problems is that they were reacting to fan outrage. So if they make a director's cut that's a different film, isn't that doing the same thing?
Yeah, it is.
We're asking, or aren't we asking them to do the same thing that we hate about this film?
Because then we should mind just say, hey, you know, we're going to put out 2 versions of each of this film, and you pick which one you like better.
It's going to be like one of those select as you go movies.
Did you see this deal that Warner Brothers has signed with this AI film management system?
Yeah. I tweeted about it this afternoon. It's sabermetrics coming to Hollywood.
This sounds stupid.
It does sound stupid, but to be fair, it's not about making creative decisions. It's about getting information about films, and I think where this is going to come in handy is at film festivals. You know, in the festival season, because what happens is these executives go into these festivals, and there's films that are already made that people are trying to sell them for distribution.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is not about who's going to be in the film. You know, this is not about casting decisions and story decisions. They're going to use this for films that are already made.
Okay. All right. See, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah. So they're going to use these for films that are already made. And so they're going to sit there and look at the metrics of the film, who's in the film, what kind of film it is, this and that. And then they're going to be able to compute like how it's going to, on a very fast basis, how it's going to fare in various markets, so that, you know, in the room, these guys can make these decisions on whether or not they want to buy these films or not. You know, so this is not Sony going out and deciding we're going to make the next Spider-Man film and who's going to be in it and who's going to write it and who's going to direct it. And this is Sony going out to a film festival and looking for 15 films to buy for distribution and deciding which ones are the best ones for them. So it's not as bad as it sounds on the surface.
Okay, I'm about to say, because that sounded kind of crazy. And I was like, you ever see the Simpsons episodes where they train all those monkeys to typewriters?
Exactly.
And, yeah, I thought that's what we were getting. Now, on to these BAFTA awards. What are the BAFTAs?
The BAFTAs are the British Film Awards. They're basically the British version of the Oscar, and they represent. They select just like the Oscars do for American films. They do for British films.
Okay.
Understanding that nomenclature, that idea of what is an American film and what is a British film is very fluid. Because there are films like for instance, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is clearly an American film.
Yeah.
It was produced by an American studio. It was shot in America with American actors. And, you know, this is an American film, but it has a British production partner, Heyday Studios. It has a Chinese production partner. So the film is technically a British film and qualifies for the BAFTAs, which is a lot of reasons why they bring in British production partners, and why British studios bring in an American production partner, so they can qualify for the Academy Awards. And then, you know, they bring in a Chinese production partner so the film can get distributed in China. So, you know, it's all on the money side. This stuff happens.
Now, is there any nomination that surprised you, or a mission?
Well, I don't necessarily know about a particular nomination that surprised me, but certainly there are surprises in the nominations. The big thing being that all of the acting nominations, in all 4 categories, are all white, and that's a problem.
Ooh,
In
2020.
2020, that is a
20.
huge problem.
Well, that's just okay. Yeah. So I guess we're still doing this.
Yeah, exactly. And, I don't think that's going to be the situation when it comes, time for the Oscars, because I think the Academy is been pushing to be itself more diverse,
Yeah.
and have more voices and have more viewpoints. But I think the Academy members are also more aware of
The pushback that they're getting.
the pushback that they get when things like this happen. The problem they're going to face is the best director category, because it's a lot of men in there. Out of 20 potential acting nominations, the fact that in one case, in the supporting actress, Margot Robbie got
What in the
nominated
hell?
twice for 2 different movies is just baffling.
Are people checking these things when they're supposed to? And there's who watches The Watchmen? Somebody's supposed to be monitoring this stuff?
Well, what they're saying. Oh, and the other thing is that Scarlett Johansson got nominated twice. She got nominated in Best Actress
For what
and
role?
Best Supporting Actress. So, Best Actress, she got nominated for Marriage Story, and in Best Supporting Actress, she got nominated for Jojo Rabbit.
Oh, okay.
Which, hey, I mean, and BAFTA's defense as well. This is where the votes are. We don't massage the votes at all. The votes come in and we just report them. That's kind of a cop-out, but maybe you need to take a look at who your membership is and who's voting. I mean, fine, you just tally the votes. Okay, that's fair, but you need to look at your membership. And the fact that the British film industry is still doing this is a bit of a problem.
Now, does that get televised over here, or we just hear about it the day after?
It gets televised on BBC.
Check your local listings, folks.
Yeah, check your listings. The problem, the thing is that 7:00 in Britain is like 1:00 in the afternoon here, so it gets like time delayed. So by the time it actually gets broadcast on BBC America, everybody knows who won already. So, I mean, it's still a good show. It's a little smaller and faster and funnier than the Oscars. It's not as stodgy as the Oscars are.
Anybody could be better than Ricky Gervais.
The thing about the Oscars this year are just like last year. They're not going to have a host.
Good.
But for all the, I'm not a big Ricky Gervais fan myself, but you got to admit, I kind of actually didn't have much of a problem with the things he had to say. He had the stuff that he was saying at the end there.
I didn't
Somebody
find it
needs
funny.
to call these people out.
I don't think that was the time or the place.
Well, when are you going to do it?
Yeah, he's got a podcast or something. Everybody's a podcast.
Yeah, but nobody listens to that. But the fact that you know what? He makes a good point, Don't take your private jet to the Save the Planet rally. That's, it's not a bad point. Leo, guys like, Leonardo DiCaprio are all about, save the planet, save the planet, save the planet. And then he gets on his private jet and flies to the Mediterranean to get on his 300-foot yacht.
I get it. Just, to me, not there. Like, I didn't get all dressed up in my tux to come be insulted.
Well, yeah. But, they're all about patting themselves on the back. And they're all about, these are, especially when we get later into the award season, when you get stuff like the Academy Awards, it's like us giving ourselves awards.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate celebration of privilege. And these people put themselves up there like, sometimes like, they're the oppressed ones, which is ridiculous. And sometimes you need to, wake people up a little bit. And the fact is, he had a job to do, and part of his job is to keep the show on time. And part of that is, hey, don't go off on these little speeches when you really got no play, when you really got no standing to do it. Was he a little rough on it? Maybe, but I actually don't have a problem with the tone of it and the overarching theme of what he said.
Anything else? What's coming out this weekend? Is there anything in the theaters worth seeing?
No, it's like I was gonna go to the movie. My wife and I were gonna go to the movies last week, and then we were kind of like, yeah, there's really nothing out here that we want to see. That much. So,
nope. The Grudge.
Yeah.
I'm not a horror guy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hearing like a lot of good things about Uncut Gems, but I don't know that I need to go see that in the theater.
That's you know what I was just saying that too. I was like, that's something I wait for I get home. I want to see Just Mercy, but I don't think I'm going outside when it's going to be 30 degrees this weekend. And there's playoff football, so yeah, guess not.
That's the thing with the big guys, right? And the oval shaped ball.
Yep. And the illustrious Green Bay Packers will be playing against our arch nemesis Seattle Seahawks. Hopefully, we can pull out a win for Aaron Rodgers before he retires. But yeah, they have nothing left to see. I did rewatch Aquaman the other day. The film still holds up, except that the middle's still weird. But other than
What'd
that,
you rewatch?
Aquaman
Oh, okay.
still holds up.
Yeah, I watched. We watched? Angel Has Fallen.
How'd you like it?
It's it's about what we expected it was going to be.
I like Nick Nolte in it.
Yeah, he was good in it.
Yeah, he did what he needed to do.
And we watched, and then right after that, we watched Alita, which was better than I thought it was going to be.
I like that movie a lot.
It was actually pretty good. Yeah.
I don't know if I don't think we're getting a sequel, but I would love. I'm into that lore now. Like, I like this world that they've built.
Well, I certainly think that I certainly set it up for a sequel. Whether or not enough people saw it to justify a sequel is going to be another question. But they certainly were setting the story up for it to be a sequel.
Mahershala is quietly surpassing Idris as the new guy for me.
Yeah, he is. He is. He's pretty good, but he ain't no Black Superman.
Hey man, I don't know. Blade comes out. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be real hard. Idris gonna have to go get himself a DC role.
Movie version of Black Lightning.
Hey, they were gonna maybe he can redo Action Jackson.
That movie's perfect. It doesn't have to be remade.
Yeah. How do you like your ribs?
Plus, man, Carl Weathers could remake that movie.
Yes, he could. Carl Weathers was fantastic in The Mandalorian. Do the magic baby hand thing.
Exactly.
He was great. I'm happy to see a lot of these old guys have a resurgence. I'm seeing a lot of like Dolph Lundgren commercials. I'm happy for these guys. I think that is a weird byproduct of the streaming wars and everybody making their own content. Like, a lot of these old actors are getting new life.
Well, there's there's certainly a lot more content and a lot more avenues for them to do. And direct to video doesn't mean what it necessarily meant.
No.
20 years ago, where it was like,
ugh.
A movie that was on the bottom shelf of Walmart and nobody ever bought it. But now it's direct to video, but it's going to be on Netflix or it's going to be on some streaming service and maybe or Hulu and maybe someone will watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think there's a certain level of nostalgia for these old guys. I mean, certainly the movies like the Expendables or the Red series have been living off that nostalgia. And yeah, it was good to see Carl Weathers back and looking good and doing well for himself and being a good character in the show. It's good seeing Billy D back.
Yes,
You
it
know,
was.
even if it was just for a little bit in that movie, but it was good to see him back. So yeah, I could ride the nostalgia wave.
All right. Anything else before we head out of here?
Not really. Just to know that going forward, when we're here in season 2, as we're kicking off, we're gonna kind of expand our availability a little bit. We're also going to be available on YouTube. Don't worry, you don't have to watch a video of me and Randell doing this. It's just going to be just another avenue where you can listen.
Unless you want it, we'll make a Patreon.
If you want it, hey, yeah. If we get enough people who ask for it, we'll do some video stuff too. But for now, it's just going to be just another place where you can listen to the podcast. So if you have a YouTube app or YouTube Red or whatever, you tell your friends, "Oh, I don't know how to podcast." Well, just go on YouTube. So you look Movie Punditry podcast on YouTube. The channel's up, but there's nothing on it now. But when we upload this episode, right behind it, it's going to be on YouTube. So by the time you listen to this, hopefully it'll be up. And it's just another avenue.
Well, that's it for this week, folks. I'm Randell.
And I'm Mike.
Peace.
Peace out.